highlighting the same theme of there being someone that is lost, something that is lost, and someone that is looking. First, in the first few verses, we have the lost sheep. We know that one, the 99. Then we have the 10 silver coins. The woman loses one, sweeps the house. This is Luke 15. Sweeps the house until he finds it. And then comes the story of the prodigal son. The man who had 2 sons, and the younger one said to him, Father, give me everything so that I can go. He goes, wastes, spends all his money, and then afterwards recognizes, whoa, I just spent all my dad's money. Maybe I should go back. As I referenced in the prayer, at one point or another, we've all been lost. Maybe some of you grew up in church like I did, and you had to recognize that even within the church, you were lost. But we all lost for one main reason, because we left God, even within the church. At some point or another, we've left God. We've offended God. And you guys remember about a year ago, I preached a sermon on Luke 15 and about the Father and some of the cultural elements of asking the Father to give him the inheritance meant that he was asking his Father to die. So he was offending his Father. And yet, when he's about to come back, when he's about to look for his Father, there is still a misunderstanding of the Son. And this is something that I wanted to highlight as we talk about being at peace with God. And it is the view that we have of God. The Sabbath school this week, and kind of these last couple of weeks, has been talking about the grace of God and how we view God, whether it is as a judgmental father or as a loving parent who is welcoming people back. Especially this week, one of the that captured my attention was the one that was talking about God and allowing pain, and how our view of why, or our understanding of why God allows pain and suffering, colors what we believe of our God as a father. Is he the one that allows us to suffer? Is he the one that allows us to experience, or is he only allowing us to experience the consequences of our sin? And when we look at Luke 15 and what the prodigal son was thinking as he came back to his father, there is, and I hadn't seen it until I was rereading it through the eyes of someone who's trying to make peace with God and with others. And that is the understanding that the prodigal son had of God. Of the 3 parables that Jesus does, this is the only one that colors in the viewer of the offender. The other ones, whether it was the lost sheep or the coin, it was the person, the shepherd or the woman looking for the sheep and the coin. But here the father's not really the one looking, but he's the one waiting. And it is the son coming back. And what is interesting is there is a religious coloring on this prodigal son. It's religious people who view themselves, or we view ourselves, as being inside of God's will and his agenda. We kind of tend to think what God is up to, and so we interpret, as we see the Bible, we interpret, well, I'm not that, or God is not that. This particular son, the prodigal son, had the same view, and both of the sons did. They viewed their father as a great employer, and therefore they were seeking to fulfill his standard. When the prodigal son comes, in part of his speech, he says, Father, I've sinned against you. He recognizes that. I'm not worthy to be called your son. Duh. He says, so make me like a hired servant. And the thing that this prodigal son is looking for in his father is not relationship again, but rather a transaction. An exchange of, I'm going to do this so that you can do this. I will do good work so I can keep my job. How does that differ from what God is? How does that differ from the way in which we as Christians sometimes picture or paint God to the world as we go about doing mission? Are we calling people out because they're not doing what God wants them to do? That seems to be a big part of a message sometimes. Of, you're a sinner, you need to come to Christ and change so he can change your life. And while that is the message, there's some coloring and intention, some misunderstood or assumed concepts in the background of God is a harsh employer. If you If you don't do what he wants you to do, if you don't fulfill his law, he's going to kick you out. And if you do his law, then he's going to welcome you in. If you fail him, you're out. And if you want to come back, you better do what you have to do. Much like a parent who says to their rebellious son, while you're in my home, you're going to follow my rules. Same picturing. And my wife constantly tells me this as I try to discipline my children better than I was disciplined growing up. My mom did a great job, and yeah, I know that I can do better. My wife tells me, as you discipline, make sure you remember that you, as a father, are showing them a picture of who God is. If you punish them relentlessly, if you only love them for their good behavior, that is what they're going to imagine God being like. And the same way in which we live and we interact and we react to our suffering, our pain, our difficulties, or our blessings, or the way we interact with God, that's the same picture that our neighbors, our friends, our family members are getting of God. If I personally view God as a taskmaster or harsh employer, that is the picture that they're going to get. And who wants to sign up for that? A life of uncertainty, of fear, a life of being an employee. I mean, we already work plenty with bosses that are ungrateful and that demand of us and they don't give us good money. So who wants to sign up for work hard, get paid? And you might not think of it. That's not how I believe of God. But at least I grew up hearing my grandmother be like, oh, I want Jesus to come so we can go to heaven and all this suffering is done. She said it. Great. She loved it. But nowhere in that picture did I saw a loving Christ or a desire to save others. All I saw was a grandma, my grandma, God bless her heart, who was desperate to get away from pain, who was desperate to